Rosaline is a comedic retelling of a classic Shakespearean love story inspired by Romeo and Juliet, though it diverged from the original in its conclusion. Directed by Karen Maine and loosely based on the novel When You Were Mine by Rebecca Searle, the movie stars Caitlin Dever in the titular role. In this video, we'll explain in detail the ending of Rosaline. Make sure you stick with me to the end of the video. Without any further delay, let's get into it. To understand the ending, let's take a quick reference to where it all started. At the start of the movie, Romeo is shown to be a frequent visitor to Rosaline's balcony. The two lovers have to hide their romance from Rosaline's dad, played brilliantly by Bradley Whitford, as she is a member of the Capulet family while he is a Montague. However, the feud between their families is not the only thing causing a rift in their relationship. Rosaline is a bit too independent and ambitious, even for Romeo's liking. She also couldn't express her feelings. When he professed "I love you" to her, rather, she met him with silence. To make matters worse, Rosaline's father was desperate to marry the willful girl off, one suitor being Dario, a young man who Rosaline continuously rejects yet still asks for his help whenever she needs it. When Romeo met Rosaline's cousin, Juliet, the two fell madly in love. He completely forgets about our titular heroine, and so the romantic story Shakespeare made famous began. Rosaline, however, is not ready to let go of her first love, so she begins a ruthless campaign to sabotage the star-crossed lovers and convince Romeo that she, not Juliet, is his one true love. Rosaline spent most of the movie trying to get her ex, Romeo, back. Her attempts at keeping her cousin, Juliet, away from Romeo, including taking her to a bar, convincing her that he is a player, stealing her love letters, and getting a very gay Paris betrothed to her. What then happened in Rosaline's ending? After discovering that Romeo and Juliet plan to elope, Rosaline rushes to stop their marriage at Rosaline's end. Along the way, Rosaline convinced Dario to help her, and they began to warm up on the journey. The two Rosaline figures are intercepted by Montague guards on their way to stop Romeo and Juliet's wedding and are taken prisoner instead. After escaping from the Montagues, Dario reveals that he plans to join the Navy, and he and Rosaline goes their separate ways. With Rosaline deciding not to stop Romeo and Juliet's union after all, Rosaline then has to send Romeo's Juliet love letters back to him, but they were intercepted by Tybalt, who challenges Romeo to a duel and is killed in the challenge. This event leads the audience to discover that Romeo and Juliet are married and that their fathers swear to separate them. Rosaline and Dario, whom Rosaline made amends with, rushed to help Romeo and Juliet escape their families so they can be together. This venture proved successful after Rosaline convinced them to fake their deaths, and she scolded the Capulet and Montague patriarchs for their feud. After the Montague and Capulet families left, Romeo and Juliet sailed to Cyprus for their honeymoon, and Dario and Rosaline shared a kiss as they watched them go. Next up, let's know why Rosaline later decided not to stop the wedding. At the end of Rosaline, the titular character is determined to stop Romeo and Juliet's wedding so she could win Romeo back. But after Rosaline and Dario escape the Montagues, she has a change of heart and doesn't interfere with the wedding again. Although the Hulu movie did not give an explicit explanation as to why Rosaline changed her mind about stopping the marriage, the answer can be found in an earlier conversation between Rosaline and Dario. As the couple travels to end the marriage, Dario asks Rosaline what she likes about Romeo, and she replies that she couldn't put it into words. This prompted Dario to give a monologue about what love is, including that it's not that hard. Dario's speech made Rosaline realize that she doesn't really like Romeo after all. Now, let's talk about why Tybalt challenges Romeo to a duel in Rosaline's ending. After Rosaline came to the conclusion that she doesn't like Romeo, she decides to make amends with Juliet. This was what led Rosaline to return Juliet's love letters from Romeo to him, which she did in the form of an olive branch, and she put in writing, "These letters are your love story, not mine." Unfortunately, the postman, Nico Hiraga, delivered his letter to Tybalt rather than Juliet. This revealed Romeo and Juliet's love story to their families, the Montagues and the Capulets, who have had a long-standing feud. The revelation of Romeo and Juliet's love jeopardized both their relationships and their lives, as reading the letters led Tybalt to challenge Romeo to a duel. This was largely inspired by Shakespeare's original play, with Romeo killing Tybalt in a duel, leading him into exile. In light of all these, let's take some time to talk about why Rosaline helped Romeo and Juliet. Although Rosaline decided not to interfere with Romeo and Juliet's wedding, it may seem odd that she would go so far as to help them escape their families after their marriage becomes public. However, it makes sense for Rosaline to help them because nearly every obstacle Romeo and Juliet have encountered in the movie thus far was Rosaline's fault, either directly or indirectly. Rosaline's actions at the end of the movie are her attempt to apologize to the couple and try to make amends for hampering their romance and inadvertently exposing their relationship. I think that makes some pretty sense now. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Now about Dario. Why didn't he join the Navy? After Rosaline and Dario escaped from the Montagues, just as I highlighted before, he told her that he plans to join the Navy. But that was clearly not the case at Rosaline's end, with the reason he stayed being ambiguous. After Romeo and Juliet managed to escape their families and save their marriage, Rosaline asks Dario why he didn't join the Navy, pointing out that he might have been away from Verona at the time. Dario, played by Teal, who was also in the X-Men spin-off The Gifted, replied that Rosaline inspired him to do things, and Rosaline didn't go further on the subject. To further break his reason for not joining the Navy down, with Dario still in love with Rosaline, he ultimately chooses not to join the Navy. You know, love can be messy at times. Makes sense now, right? Wrapping it up, here is the true meaning of Rosaline's ending. Rosaline is a version of Romeo and Juliet, one of the most famous love stories of all time, but the romantic comedy has a slightly different meaning than its source material. The original Romeo and Juliet was about a pair of young lovers who were perfect for each other but doomed by outside factors. But Rosaline complicated this when Romeo and Juliet survive, ending up together. Instead of being about doomed love, the real meaning of the Shakespeare adaptation was that true love is not synonymous with perfect love. During the eponymous movie, Rosaline thought her true love was Romeo, a cliche of a perfect romantic, but it was actually Dario who she argued with constantly, yet intellectually challenged her, which she appreciated. In contrast, Romeo and Juliet, supposed to have the perfect love story, were seen in the mid-credits scene struggling to make conversation due to having nothing in common. The end of Hulu's Rosaline demonstrated that, although society advocates for people to pursue perfection, it is better to have a love story that is true to oneself. Let me know if you agree with this in the comment section. Next up, will there be a sequel to Rosaline? As no sequel has yet been announced, it's unlikely that a sequel would be released until late 2023 or early 2024. The first movie was reportedly filming by September 2021, meaning that there would likely be over a year of time between the sequel beginning to film and its release. Who might be in it? I mean, in Rosaline 2? It seems like that Caitlin Dever and Teal would return to the roles of Rosaline and Dario. However, it's also possible that Dever, as a very up-and-coming actor, might be too busy, and the sequel should focus instead on Isabella Merced's Juliet and Kyle Allen's Romeo. Other cast members who might return include Minnie Driver as the nurse, Bradley Whitford as Rosaline's father, and Spencer Stevenson as Rosaline's best friend, Paris. And what would Rosaline 2 be about? There are two separate ways that a sequel to Rosaline could go. Dever and Teal have such great chemistry that it seems like a shame not to explore the relationship between Rosaline and Dario. Perhaps they could navigate having a relationship while Rosaline pursues her dreams of becoming a cartographer. Or they could work to ensure that the feud between the Capulets and the Montagues is broken down. Rosaline's career aspirations aren't fully explored in the first movie, so it would be great to learn more about why she loves maps and what her working with them might mean. That concludes today's video. If you found the video helpful, please do consider giving us a thumbs up and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. See you next time, and thanks for watching.